Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Maisha. For those of you who do not know me, but many of you who already follow me, who have been on some of my lives, you all know that I am the founder of the Mind Remapping Company, and I teach trauma informed communication and run NLP coach trainings. So, I want to talk today, and thank you for everyone who's joining today live, and for those of you who will be listening on the replay. So today, I want to talk a little bit about purpose, and what I'll start with is that in the world of neuro linguistic programming, in the work that I do, we often talk about frames, how we frame things, how things are framed, and when I talk about frames, I mean like how things are framed in our mind. And I'll talk about this in a future live more specifically, but when we think in pictures, and there's usually some type of framing around the words that we use. You often hear me, if you listen to the podcast, The Black Mind Garden, if you follow me on my blogs or anything, you often hear me talk about the fact that we all hold different models of the world. And I use a term called, or a phrase called, the maposthnothic territory. And what that means is we all have these various models for the words that we encode. And so when we talk about the word purpose, everyone sort of has this various model of what purpose is, right? So there's all these books that are written about purpose. There's the purpose-driven life, and then there's people often talk about finding your purpose and walking in your purpose, and these things can be very useful and powerful. It can, like, purpose can be a useful and powerful motivating frame. It can be a very useful and powerful motivating tool. And oftentimes, people who feel like they're sitting in their purpose or they're walking in their purpose, they are very motivated toward whatever whatever they think or they feel, or they that occurs to them as being their purpose. However, there is the flip side of this frame of purpose that can be somewhat harmful if we are not careful. It can be unhealthy. And so, of course, in the title, I say, when the attachment to purpose becomes unhealthy. And I want to talk a little bit about that because, what's the line? When does purpose become unhealthy and an unhealthy attachment? Well, so here's what I'll say to start, right? Purpose can mean a lot of things. And I think that, for some people, purpose gives them a sense of value, right? And when we attach purpose to value, and we are in a situation where we feel like we have not found that purpose, that can over time lead to um, an unhealthy mental well-being or emotional well-being. It could create uh, a a space in us where we feel unworthy. So it's important, number one, as a frame, for us to begin to unhook purpose with value, right? We're going to, in this conversation, I want to talk about some things that make purpose, that can make attachment to purpose unhealthy. And we're going to talk a little bit about reframing this world of purpose to a more empowering frame inside of our mind. So if we use the word purpose, we can think of something that empowers us and pulls us forward rather than something that can keep us stuck. So a couple of things about this world of purpose. When we have an attachment to purpose that gives us tunnel vision, and that can create an unhealthy dynamic, because when we have tunnel vision, sometimes we lock out the other opportunities. Now, just imagine if you're driving down the street and you have tunnel vision, You can't see the cars driving beside you. You can't see the potential other routes that there are to get to the same place that you're going. You can't see a lot of things when you have tunnel vision. It's a restriction of view. And some might say, well, that's focus. Well, where you can focus and still have an awareness of what's happening on the periphery, right? And so I think it's important when we talk about this place of focus for us to be mindful of where focus can create tunnel vision. And why that's important is because for some, when we feel like we're, like we found that purpose, and that's another conversation we're going to come to in a moment. We found the purpose or our purpose, then that tunnel vision can also lead us into a space of stuckness, especially when this thing that we thought was our purpose becomes a place that becomes an environment that no longer serves us. So we're going to take medicine as an example. A lot of docs that I used to talk to would share with me that this was their purpose. Like medicine was their purpose. They grew up, they always wanted to be a doctor. They always, wanted to heal people and help people in this way, and that was their purpose. Like medicine, that was their purpose. And so now the way medicine has changed, the way healthcare system has changed, in a lot of ways does not support the idealistic views of some of those physicians who came into this field feeling like this is my purpose. And when you are enter into an environment that can be toxic, especially like these jobs that are toxic inside of this purpose, sometimes being attached to this one thing is my purpose can actually keep you in an environment that's unhealthy. So I have seen instances where someone will be in this job or this career that is having a negative impact on them, both in the physical and mental and emotional well-being. But because it's purpose, there's an unwillingness to move in a different direction. So this is when attachment to purpose can actually be harmful. And it's all in the way it's framed, right? It's all in the way that purpose is framed. It doesn't mean that it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're walking in this specific work or purpose, that if you need to shift, that you'll be stepping out of purpose. That doesn't mean that, but we're going to get to that in just a moment. All right. So the other pitfall of purpose, of this attachment to purpose, is that we don't often see that purpose can shift, can change, and can evolve. So most people see purpose as a very concrete, static thing like this. So the one purpose, the one thing, and that is the thing. And a lot of people don't often see that purpose can grow, can shift, can change, can look different, can evolve. I'll use myself as an example. So growing up, I decided to be a physician at in the 8th grade, right? That was what I wanted. That's what I went for. That's what I knew. And I tell this story often. It wasn't like there wasn't some, like some light opening up in the sky, or I didn't having some really, really great experience that led me to want to follow in some other physician's footsteps. Although I did have some very good doctors growing up, both in my family and out. And so that might have been a model for me, but I just decided like that was the path that I was going to go down. That was the path that I was called to. Put a pin in that. Called to, right? And so I went down that path. Well, it wasn't really far into my career when I realized that, and I thought, my purpose was healing, right? This is my purpose, to heal, and I was called to heal in this particular way, which was medicine, which was holistic medicine at the time was what it was called, or integrative medicine is what we now call it. Some people call it functional medicine, where we integrate in the Western style with more holistic styles of practice. And so then I thought that's my purpose, to be able to share and show people that both worlds can be integrated, and that the best healthcare and medicine comes from integrating the two worlds. Like I really thought that was my purpose at some point. And when I came to a point in my career where I could feel in my every fiber of my being that that was no longer my path, then I chose to pivot and to shift. And I had a lot of work to do around that because for me, I thought I was walking in this purpose, right? And I didn't have it that, the purpose could evolve, or maybe the purpose that I thought that I had claimed was not the actual purpose. Like I had to dig a little deeper. And what I came to discover that for me, that I think at my core, I'm a healer, and healing looks different in different healing has different forms, takes different forms in different contexts. So even today in the, you know, second or third career that I'm in, I still heal just in a different way. Now I say that to say, and I share that to share that, my calling or what I'm called to is healing and helping people. Right? Really, it's the healing. It's the healing that I'm really called to. And and when I in my first career, it looked like practicing medicine, right? In my second career, it looked like helping healthcare professionals, doctors, helping them to heal from whatever, you know, toxic career path, background, and to be able to create a career that they love for their own mental well-being so they can continue to help people. And it's come around to this work of really helping people to see and the ways that their own thinking and belief patterns are harming themselves, right? And there's some other things as well, like being in the anti-oppression, anti-racism space, and consulting and trauma informed communication. Like these are all forms that paths that I'm called to continue healing work. So that comes back around to this whole piece of purpose evolving and shifting and changing. And what I submit to you is that rather than us using this word purpose as um, a static being or a static place, to reframe it to pathways and callings, right? What are we called to do? What are we called to do? Like what is it that we love that lights us up? And not to say this thing is our purpose, like something outside of us is our purpose, but to begin to investigate and be curious about what you're called to in this moment. Because what you're called to in this moment doesn't necessarily mean you'll be called to for the rest of your life. And maybe as you are listening to the pathways that you're called to, and you're on that pathway, you're on that pathway, and you're on that pathway until that pathway comes to a crossroads and you have another choice to make. Which pathway are you called to, right? When you start to listen it that way, then sometimes that the core of you, the core being of who you are, as in what some people may call purpose, may actually become apparent to you. So for me, there were all the pathways. I probably couldn't have said 5 years ago that who I am as a core person, as a healer, although it was apparent. It was apparent in everything that I did, right? And when I talk to my clients, particularly my coaching clients, and I'm getting what's important to them. And I always circle back to values, right? I always circle back to values because what is important to us at our core sometimes is a hint to where that calling is. And again, we're layers. And so these things begin to be unveiled as we follow these paths that we're called to in the moment. Right. And so you're called to a particular career path in the moment. Then you look at what are the various opportunities along that path that would fulfill what's important to me, what I'm called to, and begin to um, detach ourselves from this idea that there is one purpose for our life. Now there could be, and that could be an empower if you come from a place of empowerment. I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. What I'm saying is that for people, like, there's a set of people out here. There are people walking around right now who are beating themselves up, who are devaluing themselves because they feel they haven't found their purpose, right? There are people walking around right now who are feeling lost, who are feeling like they're not enough of, or that they're not a contribution because they haven't found a purpose. And what I'm saying is that rather than rather than laying ourselves into this idea of a purpose, that we listen it as what's calling to us right now. What's calling to us right now? What is the path that we're being led to? And not necessarily um, putting that in a box of purpose, because when the moment we box ourselves in, we confine ourselves to a reality. And reality is ever shifting and ever changing, as we can see. If we look around in this world, our realities are ever shifting and ever changing. And our realities are really just based on our beliefs and our mindset and our in the moment, like our beliefs, our values, our attitudes, our environment, our filters, that creates our reality, our perceptions, that creates the realities around us. And then the reality of the world is created by the collective beliefs, values, attitudes of the culture, right? And then there are subcultures and subsets of collective beliefs that are pouring into various subsets of culture and things of that nature. But there's this collective values level that creates um, the collective reality. So all that to say that if we're pulling back into this idea of purpose, and we begin to reframe that purpose as paths that we're called to in the moment, or for this time being. You may have heard the saying reason, season, or lifetime, right? We're called to a path for a reason. We may be called to a path for a season. We may be called to a path for a lifetime. But rather than um, relegating ourselves or allowing ourselves to be stuck in this idea that there's only one right path, right? There's a symptom of dominant culture called by that Tema Okum talks about, called only one right way. It's a symptom of white supremacism culture, a symptom of dominant culture, symptom of oppressive culture, called only one right way. There's no such thing as only one right way. And there's really no such thing as only one right purpose. And so w- this is the word that I wanted to bring this week, because I've had a few conversations over the last couple of weeks about this idea of purpose. And I think we attach ourselves to that word in a way that can be harmful sometimes. And when we begin to reframe that and expand this idea of purpose to paths and to calling, then it gives us some freedom to explore and to be curious, and perhaps find ourselves on the journey of calling and pathways. So I invite you, as you know I always do, as a practice for the next week or so, to really start to think about, what am I called to? What am I called to right now? And am I living in alignment with what I'm called to right now? Am I living in alignment with that path, right? If I is it a reason? Is it a season? Is it a lifetime? You actually never know that part. So allowing, if you are at a crossroads, and you are struggling with this crossroads, maybe it's time to look at it as in, you know, the path that I have been on, or if you're coming to a crossroads, the path that I have been on has been for it was for a season or for a reason. And it was a great season. And what have I learned? And now what is that going to teach me? What am I now called to? And what am I now called to? What path am I called to? And what can I take from this path, from these learnings? What learnings can I take in my next path, in my next journey, in my next thing that I'm called to? Whether it be in your career, whether it be in your relationships, whether it be with parenting, whether it be in business, wherever it may be that you're coming to that crosswords, appreciate the path that you have been on, appreciate the crossroads, and get curious about what's next rather than, and if you're on a path and you're still unsure, the moment you stop resisting uncertainty, something will be revealed. See, it's in the resisting of the uncertainty, the resisting and the unsureness, or the lostness, right? Consider you're not lost, you're just exactly where you need to be, and allow yourself to be wherever you are. If it's a feeling of lostness in career, just allow yourself to be kind of there for a moment and see what arises when you get curious and lean into that, right? If there's an uncertainty, allow yourself to be curious and lean into that and see what arises next, because what we resist persists. So if we're resisting lostness, we're trying to get out of being lost. We're trying to get out of being uncertain and find that certainty. The more we resist, the deeper the hole we dig of that uncertainty, that unsureness, and that lostness. So as we're searching for this thing called purpose, or this thing called, the one right path, which, like I said, there's no such thing. As we as we continue that search, allowing yourself to like relax and be curious and investigate, right? And then if you're having trouble doing that, if you're having trouble allowing yourself, if you're having trouble eliminating the negative thoughts that come up, like, I must be incapable, or I must be lazy, or I must be this, or I must be that. If you're having trouble getting rid of those thoughts or letting those thoughts go, that's where working with someone makes a difference, right? Working with someone who can get deeper to the unconscious mind, to look at where's the first time that happened, and to be able to help you to let go of those limiting beliefs and thoughts. So that is one of the things that I do. I also teach this work. I teach people how to understand, like understanding the inner workings of their mind and their brain, and how to be able to utilize language tools and other rapid transformational tools to be able to shift focus on a regular basis, on a day to day basis, and eliminate these negative beliefs and thoughts at their source, at the source cause. Um, and so, if that's something you want to learn more about, then if you're listening here live with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, you can go to mindremappingacademy.com. That is in my bio link. If you're on Instagram live with me now, that'll be in the descriptions. If you're on YouTube and on Facebook, I think those are also in my bio links. But you can also reach out to me directly if you'd like. And if you're, like I said, interested in the trainings themselves, just go to the website. You can schedule a call with me, and we can talk a little bit more about that. Um, and so that is the word of this week. Really begin to expand, to let go of this attachment to purpose, and allow yourself to reframe that into pathways and what you're called to. Allowing yourself to get curious if you're uncertain to unsure, and let that rise. Just appreciate the path that you're on and the learnings that you're getting right now. Okay. um, Of course, I always appreciate, especially for those who are listening to the podcast on the back end. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, you can find the Black Mind Garden on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Spotify for podcasters. I mean, so that's actually for me. Haha. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, whatever podcast platform, Stitcher that you are on. And I invite you to subscribe so you can actually know when our next episodes are coming up. And you can actually, these lives are these lives, but these lives will also end up in the podcast as well. So you can keep up with these and go back and listen as often as you want. And so I invite you to listen to the Black Mind Garden podcast and go and subscribe. Also, share this with someone you know. If you or someone you know is having and struggling with this whole idea of purpose, this is something to share with them so they can maybe get a new view or a new context for how to use purpose in their lives or how to really start to reframe that idea in their minds. So I invite you to share this with at least one other person who either you know or maybe you don't know is struggling, a friend, a family member, a colleague, a boss, it doesn't matter. Share this with someone so they can really start to reframe this whole idea of purpose into something that is empowering for them. All right, so that is all I have for today. You all have an amazing rest of your day and a great rest of your week, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye, y'all.